1987. This is Joe Todd and Berenice Jackson, an interview with Mrs. Stella Elmore in Woodward, Oklahoma. Your address is 1623?
12.
Okay. Ma'am, where were you born?
I was born in Enid, northeast Enid.
And when's your birthday?
September the 28th. I was born in 1899.
1899. Who was your father?
Ed Krager.
How you spell the last name?
K-R-E-G-E-R.
K-R-E-G-E-R.
Uh-huh.
And your mother?
And her name was Lucy Krager.
What was her maiden name?
Tice.
T-I-C-E?
T-I-C-E.
And where were your parents from?
My mother was from Cass County, Indiana. And my father was from Germany.
Did your father talk about why he came to this country? Why did he come?
I didn't, I was pretty small, and I can't tell you just what part of Germany he was in, but he was in when they had the war over there. That was the Rebel War, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was probably under Kaiser Wilhelm I in the 1870s.
And he ran away from over there to get out.
Was he in the military?
He got away from there. I don't know whether he was in the military, but his father was, and was a prisoner of war.
Did he ever talk about that, about his father being a prisoner?
Yes. Now my mother, I don't remember much about my daddy because I was little when he died. He died at the age of 45. But he said that his father, they took him prisoner and they starved him to death. And now whether he was in the army, I don't know, but he ran away from over there and got over here.
Yeah. Who took him prisoner, your grandfather?
What is it?
Who took your grandfather prisoner?
It's somebody in Germany.
Okay. Hmm. And did he talk about the trip to America?
Well, he landed in, I believe, Hennessy, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Why did he come to Oklahoma?
I guess just to get away from over there, that's all I know.
Did he talk about landing in New York, in this country?
Yes.
What did he say about Ellis Island?
Well, really, I don't know.
Okay. And how did he travel to Oklahoma?
But
How did he travel to Oklahoma?
I don't know. I don't know how he got across.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if my mother was living, she could tell you.
Yeah.
But us kids were all little, and I just don't know. And my daddy was married to another woman, and he had 4 boys. But he was married to her after he got over here.
What kind of work did your father do?
Farmer.
Farmer? As a small girl, what chores did you do in the farm?
What?
What chores did you do in the farm?
Oh, I done a little of everything. I cut wood, because we had stoves in, wood stoves. We didn't have, and I was born south of Woodbury, 12 miles, and his home and my mother's home was just a log house, 2 rooms.
Now you say you were born
12 miles south. Well, I was born in Enid.
Okay.
And moved to Woodward when I was 2 years old.
Okay. You said you cut wood. How'd you cut wood?
With the axe. We had my brother and I, my oldest brother, we always harnessed the horses and hitched them to the wagon, and that was our job on after I got out of school, was to go to the creek and cut wood.
That was here south of Woodbury.
south of Woodbury.
What creek did you live on?
Do you know where Mr. Little bought our place 12 miles south of Woodbury, Doc Little here in Woodbury, used to run a drugstore.
Oh, yes. Yes, I knew him.
I thought you did. Well, and he redone the house, and one thing or another after they got it.
How much land did you own?
160.
Did you do laundry at home?
Yes.
Tell me how'd you do it?
I washed on the washboard.
Would you tell me exactly how you did the laundry from the time you drew the water from the well until you hung the clothes up? How'd you do it?
Well, I'll tell you, our well was one of these kinds that you drawed with a pulley. And we'd bring the water up, and we had our water in a kettle outside the house. And then I washed on a washboard. I've still got a washboard. Washed on the washboard, and I boiled my clothes in a boiler. And then I hung them out on the line. That's the way I was.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take to do the washing?
Oh, it took me I expect about 2 hours and a half.
And how many people were you washing for?
4.
4. Now the ironing.
No, we didn't hire anybody.
No, ironing.
Oh, ironing, yes.
Yeah.
We had to iron all of our clothes at that time.
How'd you do it?
Well, I just spread a double sheet on the table and ironed on the table. We didn't have no ironing board.
And what kind of iron did you use?
Sad irons. I still have them.
How many did you have?
3.
3. How much of a shirt or a dress could be ironed until you had to change irons?
Well, I always put 3 on the on the stove at one time, and I just ironed with that till the clothes looked like they were done. You know, I really don't know how many minutes it'd take to iron a shirt or a dress.
And the handles were attached to the irons.
Yes.
And you had to have a hot
Hot pad. The attachment on the iron was a wooden handle across the top, and it buckled on, you know, with a button like
yes.
fastened on the iron.
You still have those?
I still have them. They're in my garage out there somewhere. I don't know where. They're in the garage.
Where'd you start the school?
Pleasant Valley.
Where's that located?
It's located 12 miles south of Woodward on 8th Street. Now that school has moved away. You know, the government got rid of all of our country schools.
Was it a one-room school?
What?
Was it a one-room school?
Yes.
How many students?
Well, we had all the way from, I expect 15.
And how did that one teacher handle all the different grades in one room?
Well, she handled them real good. We had first and second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and seventh, and 8th grade.
What was your teacher's name?
Well, I had Bill Hagerman's no, let's see, she didn't teach me. Mrs. Weber taught me. Herman Weber's. I don't know whether you know them or not, but I went to school to Herman's mother, and she was about, I expect, close to 100 years old when she died in Moreland in the hospital.
What games did you play in school?
Baseball, and I guess that's all we played was baseball.
And would you tell me how you celebrated Christmas in school in those years?
The teacher put up a tree, and we had a program at night. She trained us through the week for a program, and then we put our little gifts on around the tree.
But the families come to school also?
All the families came that night and to the Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm. Was Christmas the biggest holiday you celebrated in school?
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm. What mischief did you get into at school?
Well, that was a funny deal. We had an old man here, I forget what his name was. He taught school out there too. Well, did you know L.B. Chandler?
No.
Well, he was a school teacher out there. And his wife was very stuck up. So one morning us girls, we decided we'd do something funny, so we fixed her hair all up like we thought she would, and we put all kinds of ribbons on it, and the teacher punished us.
What did she do?
He kept us in.
Did he realize you were doing it because his wife?
Yes, we was doing it because we wanted to mock her.
You say he kept you in?
Yes, he kept us in and made us study.
Oh, this was after school then?
It was after school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't have school buses. We had to walk.
How far?
I think our place was just about a mile from the school. But there was some of them that walked lots longer than that.
Do you remember the blizzard of 1911, 1912?
Let's see.
It was a really bad winter.
I expect I did, but I don't remember just where I was at that time.
How about 4th of July? How'd you celebrate that?
4th of July. Well, we didn't do much celebration at that time. Well, I don't remember any special that we celebrate on July.
What type of crops did your father raise on the farm?
He raised maize and we had alfalfa too on the ground. That's hay.
Did you ever help your father in the fields?
Yes.
What'd you do?
I would help drive the horses because we had horses. We farmed with horses.
What were you driving when you drove the horses?
What?
What?
Sled and we had a sled that had two discs on each side and a seat on the middle. And they'd put me out to sled the crop, to kill the weeds on each side. And there was a ditch, you see, that sled come down through on each side of it.
You had listed the field to begin with.
Yes, listed.
And then this sled went into those, what do they call them, furrows?
Furrows, That's what this called.
What type of house did you live in south of Woodward?
What
What type of house did you live in?
It was a log house,
Log house?
Uh-huh.
How large was it?
2 rooms.
2 rooms?
Uh-huh.
Could you describe the furniture you had in that house?
Well, we just had a wood stove, and we had just a long table that we all sat around, And in the other room, we had 2 beds.
And you said there were 4 of you?
There was 4 of us.
Did you ever help your father work on wagons?
Oh, yes.
What'd you do?
We had a wagon. Well, I helped him when we greased the wheels.
Tell me how you do that. How you grease the wheels, the
You,
axles.
I've got a thing out here, drove in the ground out here, that we took the big, they was, what do you call them? It screws on
Bolt
the
or a
wheel.
nut?
Nut. Well, they was square. And we'd take them off and grease the wheels and then put them back on.
What kind of grease did you use?
Well, it's just a thick grease. I don't know what it was.
Axle.
Axle grease.
Axle grease.
What other work did you have to do on the wagons?
Well, wagons is the only way we had to go.
How'd you keep the tires tight?
How would what?
Keep the tires tight on the wheels.
Well, we didn't have tires. We had steel things that went around
How'd
the
you
wheel.
keep those tight?
We boiled them in some kind of oil,
Linseed.
linseed oil, hot linseed oil. We had a little trough that we put that oil in, and that's the way we.
What would the linseed oil do?
It kept them from swiveling,
Or made the wood?
made it wood
Yeah.
solid.
Okay. What else did you do around the farm?
Well, I don't know of anything else. I thought at that time I thought the farm was the only place.
Ever had any trouble with hawks?
Hawks?
Yeah.
Well, no, they didn't bother us any, but we had hawks
Okay. They
on the
wouldn't get your
creek.
chickens or anything?
We had a creek that ran through our place,
What about coyotes?
and there was some coyotes,
You have trouble with them?
and they would get our chickens if we had to lock them up at night, in the hen house, and then of a morning we didn't dare to turn them out before 9-10 o'clock on account of coyotes.
When you were on the farm as a small girl, what'd you do for recreation?
Well, I went to church on Sunday, and of course I visited my neighbors. I'd stay all night with them one night, and maybe they'd come stay all night with us the next night.
Did you have play parties?
Oh yes.
Do you remember what games you played there
Well, we played Black Man at night.
at night?
And of course in the evenings, we wasn't much to have parties in the daytime.
No.
We had our parties in the evening.
What is a play party?
What?
What is a play party?
Oh, it's where a whole bunch of your friends gather together, and we just decide when they get there what we's gonna do,
Did you play Skip to Maloo?
Yes. Sure did.
Do you remember Statehood Day?
Remember what?
Statehood Day when Oklahoma became a state, 1970.
No, I don't remember.
What about World War I?
Well, let's see, World War I.
1917, 1918.
Yeah, I remember them, but I
Did your
don't.
brother have to go?
No.
Some of the women knitted for the soldiers and some wrapped bandages, and did
Yes.
you do any work for
Yes, we did that at our church.
How was that organized? When you knitted or wrapped bandages, what'd you do?
Well, we just had a work day at the church, and everybody brought what they had, and we'd tear them in strips and roll them in rolls so that they could be used for bandages or whatever.
How wide were the strips?
They was about that wide.
And what kind of material did you use for that?
Just whatever we had. If we had old sheets or cotton flannel, we used to have flannel sheets. And we had old ones that we didn't use. Well, we gathered them up among the group that was rolling them up, and then we'd tear them in them strips. Some would tear them and some would roll them.
Did they have rationing during World War I?
Wrestling.
Rationing. Like, did you have meatless days?
Oh,
or?
yes. We had food stamps, And I had a sister that wouldn't eat hardly any because we couldn't get no flour. And it was all cornmeal, most of it. and she wouldn't eat. She would never would eat cornbread. Mother made us mush, and we used a lot of cornmeal that way.
Was there any remark said about you during that time because your father was German?
Not that I know of. He was well liked in this part of the territory.
You know, in some areas they didn't like the Germans.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever see that around this part of the country?
No, I haven't.
In fact, it happened over Shattuck quite a bit.
Oh, Shattuck.
What'd you do on Armistice Day, the day the war ended?
I really don't know what I did.
Were you still on the farm at that time?
Let's see, what year was that?
That was 1918.
No. Yeah, I was on the farm all right, but I was married.
When did you get married?
I was married in 1916.
And where'd you meet your husband?
He just lived a mile from us.
And what's his
On
name?
the farm. He was a farmer.
What's his name?
Merle Elmore.
Merle Elmore.
Uh-huh.
And you got married in 1916. Did he have to go to the war?
No, he didn't have to go.
I'd like to get back, Joe, to this sled, because we don't have too many descriptions of that implement that the farmers used.
It was a disc sled.
Uh-huh.
Had two discs on each side.
Yes, and didn't it have knives that ran out at an
You
angle?
could have, there was two kinds. Now, we had both kinds.
Mhm.
One kind did have the knife, one on each side,
Mhm.
that would take right down the row
Mhm.
and cut the weeds off.
Mhm.
And the other, we throwed the dirt in or throwed it out.
Yes.
Just turn the teeth black.
But after the crop was up, then you would turn the dirt in
Yes, uh-huh.
and fill up that farm.
It just fill up smooth.
And was it a one row or
Yes.
two rows?
One row.
One row.
There was some people that had the two rows, but we only had one row.
And how many horses did it take to pull it?
Two.
Well, that wasn't bad riding on that disc, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Now, where was the row of crops? You had the sled. Did it go over the crops, or what did it do?
Well, yes. Oh, you see that the crop couldn't be up, not any higher than that when we first went sledding it, but we had to pull it in more than one time. Now, there was an opening, you see, in between the middle of that.
And the crop, you see, wasn't touched. Is that right?
Uh-huh, that's right.
After the crop got up, how
Yeah,
did
and
you?
after the crop got up and we throw the dirt in, it was laid away till it ripened.
How did you weed the garden after the crops got up if you couldn't sled?
We didn't weed them.
You didn't.
There weren't any weeds left,
No,
were
there
they?
wasn't, or then if you kept that sled going till it got up a certain height, there wasn't no weeds there.
No. Did you raise the garden?
Yes, we raised all of everything that we ate. We butchered, my daddy butchered his own hogs. Now, we didn't butcher beef. We had hogs, and we butchered hogs, and Mother and we usually canned about 500 quarts of fruit and vegetables during the year for our put
Did
away.
you have a big orchard?
And we had an orchard, peach orchard.
Peach.
Uh-huh. We
What
did.
type of jar did you use to can?
We canned in a tin jar or a tin can, and then we run. Can't think of what the name of that is.
Beeswax? Was it rosin?
Beeswax.
Or
Was it?
beeswax? Which was it?
I believe it was beeswax. We melted it and poured it around the top to seal them.
So you used tin cans then?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you help butcher?
Yes.
What was your job in butchering?
Well, after I got married, I had to cut up a hog. 'Cause my husband had got poison on cutting. Did you know that meat rinds on a hog would poison you sometimes? Well, it did him, and he had blood poison. And so it left it up to me then, from then on, whenever we butchered a hog, I had to cut the hog up.
How long did it take to butcher a hog?
It didn't take too long. We generally took a day of butchering and cutting it up.
Would you start from the beginning and explain exactly how you butcher a hog? How you kill it all the way through?
Well, you cut its throat with a knife. Stick the knife in the throat, underneath the head.
How do you hold the hog down? Because he's not going to stand to let you cut his throat.
There was more of us to hold the hog down when we killed the hog. And when we kill the hog, well then we had water in a big tin barrel, like 50-gallon barrel. We built a fire around that. And we put that hog in that barrel and pull him backwards and forwards to loosen the hair. And then we had our butcher knives that we scraped that hair all off. It'd come off real easy. And then the hog was ready to be hung up and aired out. Now, we didn't cut it up that day. We held it up and cooled it out and then cut it up.
Then how did you cure it?
We cured it. We had a smokehouse. And we put wood in that smokehouse and built a fire and then closed the door and hung the hams and things around on the wall. And that's the way we smoked our meat.
And it was good.
Oh, it was. We sure ain't got no meat like it now.
1920s. Did you bob your hair in the 20s?
Did I what?
Did you bob your hair in the 1920s?
Cut your hair off.
Oh, yes, but I don't remember when I used to have long hair.
Mm-hmm.
I know when me and another lady come to Woodward and I had my hair cut and my husband didn't like it when I went home.
What did he say about it?
He told me he was really mad. He said, I didn't want you to have that hair cut. But he was kind of puffed up at me, wouldn't talk to me for a while.
What type of dresses did you wear in the 1920s?
I tell you, he didn't have too many dresses. I generally had one good dress. And when I went to school, my mother bought outing and made outing dresses for us that we wore to school.
Now, what's outing?
It's just, well, there's outing now. We still have some outing, like outing gowns, you know.
Okay.
Well, my mother made dresses out of that stuff. And of course I just had one good dress.
When you worked on the farm, what kind of clothes did you have to work in? Work clothes?
Well, I just worked in just whatever I wore to school. Just plain clothes. I didn't wear pants. I never did.
How did the Depression of the 1930s affect you and your family?
Well, it was hard for us. We didn't have much. But we all got along good.
But you still could raise your food.
Oh, yes.
And
we
did you
never
milk
worried
cows?
about food.
Mm-hmm. Did you milk cows?
Oh, yes.
Sell the cream?
And we did later. Now, when my father was living, we just milked 2 cows, so we milked.
Just enough for the family.
Just for the family. And of course, we ate lots of mush and milk and stuff like that, you know, things kids nowadays won't eat.
Where was the farm that you lived on? Your husband's farm?
Where was his farm?
Yes, ma'am.
It was just a mile, it's 12 miles south of Woodward and 3/4 west on 8th Street. As you go out on 8th Street.
Do you still own that farm?
My brother-in-law owns it. Yes.
What about World War II? Did you do any work to support the war effort?
I don't remember I did. I worked for people around in the country. I worked for Ollie Larson's down by Richmond when I was in school. Because I'd get out of school, I'd go down there and work for the summer for $3 a week.
Housework?
Richmond,
Did you do housework?
yes, and feed chickens.
And feed chickens.
That was my job.
How old were you?
Well, I wasn't very old. I expect I was about 11 or 12.
What were you doing the night the tornado came through?
I was at, my husband and I and my Don was at a church meeting. And
Was that here in Woodward?
No, we was 12 miles south of Woodbury where we lived. And when we came back home, the lights all went out on us out there in the country. So we went home, and when we got in the house, the telephone was ringing for help in Woodbury. So we just loaded back up and come to Woodbury.
What the town looked like?
Well, you couldn't tell what it looked like because there wasn't no lights. High lines is all down. And we went to a neighbor's out east, and us women did, and stayed there, and the men tried to get around and look to see if they could help, but they said it was so dark that they warned them about stepping on electric lines and one thing. So we went back home about midnight that night, and it rained terrible. The water run clear up. We had a Model A car, and the water run clear up on the running boards. We had running boards on the car, and the water run up on running boards stuff on us going home.
When did you come back to Woodward then?
I didn't come back to Woodward till my husband died.
I mean, did you come back for the tornado the next day to help?
Yes, the men folks did. I didn't. I had 5 relatives killed.
You did?
Uh-huh.
Who were they?
Well, there was a little girl. Her and her daddy and mother separated, and her grandmother had her. And I don't remember her name outside of Velma.
Well,
She was one of them, and my uncle, he was just cut half in two. And his name was Chance. They lived over on the north side of the town. And let's see. And my brother's boy, his oldest boy, and his wife, they got out of the house and tried to go to the courthouse or someplace to get for shelter. And he had the little girl, and his wife had the little boy. The wife was killed, and both children. And he was just full of slivers. No clothes on. It just stripped him.
What happened to him? Does anyone know what happened to him?
No, we don't know. They was trying to get to another place where they could get in for some shelter or a cellar or something, you know. If they'd stayed at home, they probably wouldn't have been killed. But he was in hospitals for, I don't know how long, with, his legs was about to big around, they just full of slivers. And he was blowed from 5th Street clean to the courthouse.
well,
And he worked at the laundry. And so when he got to himself, and he didn't know where her and the children were. They was taken away from him. he came back to the laundry and broke a window out and got in there and got somebody's clothes and put on. Because he had no clothes. They
Well,
stripped him.
Just completely stripped.
Uh-huh. And he got some clothes and got back, but he was in the hospital for a
And he
while.
doesn't know what hit him or the children?
No. Only they said he was just full of slivers, wood slivers.
What was their name?
Crater.
Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that tornado has left bad memories for you.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. And it took my aunt and blowed her away, but she finally survived. They picked her up and took her by plane to Oklahoma City to a hospital.
How far did it blow her?
And we didn't know where she was at for 3 or 4 weeks.
Well,
How far was she blown?
She was blown from north of the river over, or north and west of the river over here. She lived in a little house. That's where her and my uncle lived. And he was sitting on a bench, and there was a big window. They made benches them days and put them behind their tables.
mm-hmm.
And he was sitting there with that glass, and they said he was just cut half in two and blowed her down in a ditch. There used to be a ditch north of Woodbury there, north of town.
How far was that ditch?
Oh, it was probably, from here, it's probably about a mile. That's good.
Does she remember anything about it?
No, she didn't remember too much, and she was ill the rest of her life till she died. She had been crushed in the chest.
What's your favorite childhood memory?
Well, I loved to go to church. There was a preacher and lived just across the street, or across the road from us, and he always stopped by every Sunday morning and took me to church in the wagon.
Mm-hmm. Did you have church dinners
Yes,
and get-togethers in the afternoon
we sure did.
after your church services? Those were fun.
They were, and it took a lot of time away from you to visit with just everybody.
Yes. And the women would fix meals and take
Uh-huh.
to church, and then they'd all.
We always had a lot of people. I know they told me here at Woodward, I forget what the man and woman's name was, used to run the post office here. They used to come to our church at Sharon. And she said, you know what I come for? And I said, no, what did you come for? And she said, you always made the best chocolate pies, and I always wanted to come down there and eat pie.
Did you have a good farm life?
Yes, I did.
What was good about it?
Well, I had my family, and I just worked around and done whatever I wanted to do. I canned and I milked cows and I worked in the field. I just loved the farm.
It was a family togetherness.
That's right. It was a family together.
Could you talk about the freedom of farm life?
Well, yes, you had all the freedom in the world, and I tell you, in them days, in my days when I was on the farm, us kids just spread quilts down out in the yard and sleep out there.
In the summertime.
In the summertime. We weren't afraid. There was nothing to be afraid about. And that's the reason why I loved the farm. And I wanted to stay on the farm by myself after my husband died, and they told me that I couldn't do it. And some of the neighbors said, you just can't do it. There's too much going on now.
Well,
So, but I did stay there 4 years.
mhm. And your son was with you during that time?
Yes. He was in school.
When did you move to Woodbury?
I believe it was in, that was in 54. I believe it was in 59, or no, it was 57 when I bought this.
You bought this property?
But I did work in Woodward
Oh.
before and drove backwards and forth.
Wow.
I worked for Orland Trigo and sewed in his sewing room
Yes.
when he was over on north, down by the railroad track there.
Mhm. See, what street was that building on?
He was on 8th, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
8th Street, I think.
What'd you do for Trigo?
What did I what?
You say you sewed for Trigo?
Uh-huh.
What did you sew? What'd you
I
make?
sewed, I had to sew little kids' clothes, little Western clothes. And I usually made about 9 garments a day.
And what kind of type of garments were you making?
They was made out of just a cotton material, and then they would bring out little strips of, oh, I forget what it, anyhow, it was, it's cutting little tiny strips, what do you call it?
Tape, bias tape? Bias tape?
No, it wasn't bias, it was fringe.
Oh, yes.
They cut that little fringe, and I had to sew that on them little kids' jackets at the bottom. And it'd just be about that high. And sometimes they'd bring me strips about that long to put together.
How long did you work for Trigo?
I worked for him about 6 months. And then after the 6 months was up, he laid 20 of us off. And he said, I'll probably call you all back a little later. Well, in the meantime, Mr. Roddy was taking care of Reverend Botts. Did you know Reverend Botts?
I know the name.
He was pastor, blind pastor. And Mr. Roddy came to me and he said, are you working? And I said, well, not right now, I ain't. And he said, well, we'd like to have you to stay with Reverend Botts. He's got a woman staying with him, but she don't like to stay with him. She's afraid of him because he's blind and he just wanders around, you know. And I said, well, I know him. So I took the job for $20 a week. And I stayed with him for 2 years till he died. And he's got a brother or a son in Oklahoma City, Lewis Botts. You might have known him. He's still down there. But I took care of him all that time, and then after he passed away, well, I took care of Bob Cummings' baby. They had a newborn baby, and she was going to teach school, and he was going to teach school. And they wanted me to take care of that baby. So I took care of that baby that whole winter. Went every morning at 8 o'clock. And then after Bob and her that summer quit, well then I went to working at the King Hotel, and I worked there 6 years.
What did you do there?
I done maid work for about a year, and then he decided he'd put me on as a clerk. So I was the clerk the rest of the time. Till I got mad one day, and his brother-in-law come in the afternoons, and his brother-in-law said, there's a boy he was a good religious boy, and had run out of money, and he owed us $3. And you know, Mr. Kaiser jumped on me and said that I'd ought to have to pay that $3 because that boy had gone that morning. And I said, I'm not a bit afraid of that boy. I said, he said when he gets a job, he'll mail us the money. And he said, you'd ought to have to pay it. I just got up and took the keys out of my pocket and handed them to him and told him I was through.
Good for you.
So after I got done with that, well then, Dr. Flack called me and wanted me to go to work at a restroom, Palomino restroom. His nurse and her husband had it, and he said, I'm going to be short a nurse if you don't take that job. So I took it, and I've worked in six cafes in this Woodward, in this town, a cashier. I'd just get done in one place and somebody'd call me. And I told him, I said, I never asked for a job in my life, only the one at Trico's. Everybody knew me. And they'd call me, want me to work here and here and here. And I babysat a lot of times at night.
Well, where did Don graduate?
Sharon.
High school. Sharon. And then you sent him on to college?
No, he never had a college education.
Oh, he didn't. He didn't go
I
on.
didn't feel like I had the money to send him. And he had a girlfriend, and she's going to go to college if he went. And it was just about all I could do to furnish him money to take her out on Saturday night.
Well, I expect.
So he didn't get no college education, but he has done real good.
Seems like it.
He's got an enormous business in Norman.
Is that Pauline so?
Yes.
Yes, he has a real good business. He'll be back up here Sunday or Monday. He's going to do some carpenter work in the store.
Oh. And he's bought Oliver's out.
Yes, he bought Oliver's shoe store.
What kind of business does he have?
What kind of business?
Yes, ma'am.
He sells shoes and ladies' hose and men's hose and men's shoes and at Norman he sells children's shoes. But he's not going to stock this one with children's shoes.
Oh, he's not.
No.
Well, I know you're proud of your son.
Yeah, and he has been real good to me. He calls me from Norman every day
Well,
to see when he ain't up here, see how I am, because I had around the 6th spell and I kind of passed out here at Buffy's restroom. And I didn't know anybody. So he's been kind of concerned about me every day.
Would you consider yourself an opinionated person?
A what?
An opinionated person?
Well, now tell me what that is.
You have a strong opinion on things.
Yes, I do have. I sure do.
Well,
that's probably helped you.
Everybody tells me the reason I've lived so long that I've kind of been my own boss, independent. I won't let nobody help me. I told them, I said, if I get down to where I didn't have anything to eat, I'd ask the city to give me a broom and I'd sweep the streets if they'd feed me.
But you don't want nothing given to you.
I don't want nothing given to me. My mother was that way. And I guess I patterned off of her.
I take it there was just 2 children in your family, you and your brother.
In my family. Now, my brother, I had 2 brothers.
Oh, you had 2 brothers.
And another sister.
Oh.
And my sister died here not too long ago, and then her husband died. But he usually lives at Ringmore than that.
Well, what else?
Is it on?
Yeah.
Well, this has been a very pleasant interview for me.
Well, I'm glad.
We talk the same language.
Oh, yes, we do.
Well, I want to thank you for the interview.
Well, I'm glad I helped you in some way. And he's got 4 children.
4 children.
How often do you see Pauline?
I see her every time I go down there. I go down there and stay every once in a while. I'll go home with Donald and he bring me back.
Yes.
Oh, Pauline wants me to come live with them. 'Cause I cook her a pot of beans once in a while and have Donald does the most of the cooking. He loves to cook, and
Well.
he's a good cook.
Well. Oh, that's good.
She said, I don't know how I ever fell and got a man like him. Yes, Pauline's real good to me.
Oh, that's good.
Uh-huh.
I have a daughter-in-law that's good to me, too.
She said, I wish you'd come and live with us, but I just want to live in my own home. It's an old house. This house is 60 years old.
Well, I bet it's a good one.
Moved it off the farm.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Up here. I didn't have money enough to buy. I had me one built, so I just had it moved.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, Mr. Reese from Alva moved it for me for $300, 12 miles.
Well,
Never even took the pictures off the wall.
How'd they move it?
He moved it in tractors, and he had great big logs under it with wooden wheels. And that's the way they moved it up here.
how many rooms are there?
I've got 6 with the utility room.
It's this good-sized house to be
Yeah.
moving.
I still don't have room enough of for
I
junk.
know, the older
For
we
junk,
get-
if I get rid of some junk, Donald said, Mother, you ought to get rid of some of that junk. I
It's
said, no,
junky.
I ain't got anything I want to give up.
I know what you mean.
I'll let them do that when I'm gone.
Well,
It's not junk to you, is it?
No. Had so many things given to me.